on. How are you doing today? Good? Try again. Are we feeling good?
Yeah.
Yes? Right, okay, good. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about teamwork and all of our tools across Microsoft 365. So I'm really pumped to actually show you a lot of demos in this session. So my plan, when we think about this session and covering teamwork, it seemed like an impossible job, right? They said, hey, you're going to cover this whole thing called teamwork. And I was like, do you have any idea how many products we have that do teamwork, right? You guys know, right? And you're all like, oh, I know. There's a lot of them in here. So what I wanted to do was really take this opportunity to sort of level set a lot of where we are investing, level set a little bit about all of the different tools, the sort of the entry points that we have inside of Microsoft 365. But I also want to talk a little bit about the business scenarios that we think these capabilities are addressing. And so hopefully that sounds good to you. I will have time for questions at the end. Mark and I will be taking questions. And then what I wanted to show you first was a couple of demos to get us kick-started. I am Naomi Moneypenny. I am the Director of Teamwork and Search for Microsoft 365, which means I own both sides of that coin, if you think about it. So I own the what tool when problem, in some respects, like where do I put my stuff? And then I own the search thing, which is how do I find my stuff, right? And so if you think about it, it goes very well together. So those two areas. I'll let Mark introduce himself.
Yeah, today I am just Naomi's lackey, whatever she needs.
So not.
But I focus on a lot of what we do in teamwork on the SharePoint side. So what you can do in lists, what you can do on the pages, what you can do with web parts, what you can do obviously to then bring that up level to the sites, portals, hub sites, communication sites, all types of sites, sites. All of that, how it flows into teams by nature of collaboration, certainly is a lot of what we'll focus on today. But you can also bring in things that are more for communication and then have a nice private chat within teams. So it's a lot of that integration work. And then we focus also on the SharePoint mobile app and what people are doing on the admin side of that for governance.
Yeah, sounds great. So, since people are still filtering in a little bit, we'll get started. And what better way to get started than a demo, right? So,
straight off the bat.
Straight off the bat. You got to do that. So I want to just show a show of hands. Hopefully that you folks are very familiar with this. But who has seen the new Office.com? Okay, just a few people, half the room, maybe something like that. Hopefully you're using Office.com. So I wanted to start here because this kind of is your starting point. When we're communicating with our end users, we're thinking about where do I get started? How do I know what I have access to? Where are all these tools? How can I find the stuff that I was using earlier today or before a meeting and all those kind of questions? So when we think about that, it's really about Office.com. So logging in Office.com shows you everything you have access to in your Office 365 subscriptions. So whether that's a commercial account, you know, if you're a small, medium business, if you're an enterprise-wide business, these are the things that you're going to see. And you'll see that we've made some updates recently with Office.com. So across the top here, we've got that new search bar. We're going to talk about that in a little while. But we also have all of the applications that you frequently use here. So this is a great place to be able to explore everything that you have access to. When I hit that Explore button, you'll see that I actually get recommendations of other apps to use inside of the suite. So it actually looks at things like maybe I'm using PowerPoint, so it's going to suggest Word or Sway. If I'm using existing applications, it will suggest other things. And it actually shows you all of the things that you have access to. So this is a really comprehensive way to find all of those different tools. And you're like, yeah, I heard about this thing in Ignite, you know, it's about my analytics or something. Where do I find that in Office, right? So go to Office.com, look at all of those apps, and you'll see everything that you have access to. So it's a very simple way to sort of get started with that. So when I go off to your apps here, I can do a couple of different things. I see here documents, and these are the ones that are being recommended to me. This has just gone into targeted release as of yesterday, and that targeted release really allows us to see these items that are being recommended because the things that I've been working on with my colleagues. So they could be things that I've been mentioned on, it could be things where I've had notifications, and all of that is getting flagged to me in a very easy way for me to be able to find that content. So easy to get back to that work and easy to be able to progress the work forward. So you can see it's also telling me why I'm getting those recommendations. So in this case, for example, I frequently open these files. So it's a frequent access thing, so it's actually showing me that. And as I progress through here, you'll see that there's other notifications too. Now, I've got some other great capabilities right here. So on that recent tab, it actually shows some of the things that I've been working on. So when you're just trying to get back to the work you were on, it's like I was in a meeting, now I can't remember where my file is stored. How do I get back to it really easily? Go to Office.com, you'll see it in that recent list. It's very, very simple. I can also pin documents in here, and I can also check out things that have been shared with me recently. So again, this is something when you were in a meeting and somebody said, hey, I'm going to share this document with me, and Mark says, yeah, I'm just going to push this to you right now, and then later on you're like, I know Mark sent it to me, where is it, right? So go check out that shared list right there inside of here. And then you have also the option here to do discovery. So this discovery option here is actually looking for documents that could be useful to you across Microsoft 365. So it's things that you have permission to see, I'm going to be very clear about that, but it's also really important to be able to check out the content that could be useful to you. So it's looking for people that you're working with frequently and actually floating up some of those recommendations in there as well. So it's different from the recommended list, where it's things that you've been actively working on and being notified and mentioned on, and things that you're actively sort of cooking, if you think about it that way. And the discovery list is all about, here's stuff that could be useful to you. So it's identified that those could be useful to you as part of it too. So we've got all that great stuff here. And then we can see some other areas to go to. OneDrive is here, obviously, with the recent folders, things that you've been working on. And we've also got SharePoint in here as well. So Office.com is really a really great starting point to be able to do everything that you need. You can also install the Office applications here, obviously, if your enterprise gives you access here. So this is the part where you can actually download those Office clients. Now, if I go into one of these applications, if I go into Word here, for example, you can see I just get popped into the Word Online experience, and it's actually allowing me to collaborate directly here with OneDrive. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So for now, I'm going to flip back to the slides and talk a little bit about teamwork and sort of some of the landscape. So now that we've had an introduction, a little bit to Office.com and how do I access all of the great technologies that I have available to me in Office 365, let's talk about some of the big trends that we have inside of teamwork. And so teamwork has really been an evolving thing. Collaboration is so much more of our jobs than it ever used to be. I know that when I first started off in technology, and maybe you all felt this way too, so when I started off about technology, it was all about, hey, I want to work with computers, right? Computers, they're easy, I don't have to talk to other people, right? It was all about actually understanding how things program, how to app, how to have code, and actually produce amazing experiences. And now what we find is, this job that we have now is really not so much about technology anymore, but actually about working with people as much as possible. And so that evolution that's happened has really gone away more from the technology and actually much more about that information. And the information is all about collaboration. And so people are working on 2 times as many teams as they were before. They're actually getting a whole diversity of content coming through. Our attention spans have decreased dramatically over time. And so this is another problem. We have an explosion of content, but we also have a decrease in the amount of attention that people can actually have in terms of looking at their work. We've also got this great need to really communicate across a wide ecosystem. So, whether I'm looping in some of my colleagues, for example, or whether I'm working with vendors, consultants, suppliers around the world. So I need teamwork solutions that actually help me to fold in that entire organization. So it's not just my company and the people with my email address, but obviously that entire ecosystem of partners that are part of it too. And we also have a very diverse workforce. This is the first time in history where we've had 5 generations in our workforces. When you think about 5 generations, it's like, what do they mean? The expectations of what teamwork means to them, right? You've got, maybe executives who are sort of gone through their own transformation, but probably happened, 20 years ago when email came in for the first time, right? And they're like, this is how we do collaboration, right? Huge email strings, right? And so, and then you've got millennials who are coming in and they're like, hey, I just want to chat with everyone, right? I just look at email, it's like bad stuff happens in there, right? Don't even like parents are cutting off money that they send me email, right? It's those kinds of things. So you get this kind of this diversity of perspectives. And you also have this idea around how we're including people with different skill sets and abilities here. Again, with that inclusiveness, there's a lot that we've built into Microsoft 365 for accessibility. If you have, low computer vision, you have screen reading ability. If you have other abilities where you're either deaf or or in a noisy environment, there are lots of different ways to actually include accessibility as part of that too. And so it's a key tenet in what we do inside of Microsoft 365. We also think about employee engagement. And I've had a couple of sessions this week, maybe some of you have been to those as well, talking about employee engagement. And employee engagement is a huge area for us because it's not just about making you feel good as an employee. It actually has a huge piece of the bottom line associated with it. So when we look at some of the best performing companies in the world, they actually generate 21% more profit in a specific business unit when they have very engaged employees. And you're like, what's an engaged employee? Am I an engaged employee? Do you feel engaged? Right? Some people do. Okay, a couple people do. So if you feel engaged, you really understand a lot about the vision of your company, the strategy, and you feel alignment to that corporate mission. When you think about that vision and that mission, it's like I can actually translate it down into the work that I do every single day. So it's not some lofty vision statement that's printed on the back of your badge or a poster in a conference room. It's something that you feel that you can embody every day. And when you have that connection and that employee engagement piece, it actually makes you go the extra mile as an employee. And so we think about ways to have solutions that actually help you to generate that as part of your company too. We'll talk about that in just a second. So those are a huge landscape of teamwork trends. I'm thinking about all the things that are going on that are making it difficult for us to do collaboration, but we have some solutions in there too. We obviously think about this as a universal toolkit. So when we talk about Microsoft 365, it really is around Windows, or in this case with Microsoft 365 is Windows, Office 365, enterprise mobility, and security. Those three things really coming together to unlock powerful, innovative solutions. And you've seen, hopefully at Ignite already, a lot of the innovation that we're driving because of the synergy between those platforms. So the work that I'm going to talk about later on in Harness Collective Knowledge, we're going to talk about search. And search is a great example of something that has really come to life because of the integration between those things. So it's not just I've installed Windows, I've installed Office, I've got great enterprise mobility. I really want to think about how I'm driving synergy and driving benefit because of that. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about a few scenarios that actually light up for your specific environments. So we're talking specifically in Microsoft 365 here about this second pillar. We've got a pillar around unlocking creativity. We've got a pillar around building for teamwork, and then integrated for simplicity and security, which are much more on the administration side. When we think about teamwork specifically, it's all of those collaboration technologies that you have inside of Office. So when we think about the ways you do Teams, you maybe do Yammer, you do SharePoint, you do OneDrive, and a whole host of all of the Office applications as well. And that's what we're going to dive down into in this particular session. So I thought it would be easiest to actually frame this in scenarios that you work on every single day. So when I think about a team, we're sort of taking a little bit in a day in the life or a week in the life of a specific team. Because everything we're doing right now isn't really about individuals anymore. It's about how I'm collaborating as a team. So we're going to look at these 5 different scenarios, and we're going to go down into each of them to understand how these actually make a difference and impact the work that you're doing. The first one we're going to talk about is how I do collaboration on files. It seems like a very simple step, right? It seems like a very simple scenario. We all have to collaborate on files. We have to work on this information. But we're going to start there and look at the different ways that we can use that powerfully across the organization. We're also going to dive into these other scenarios here to think about teams on a small scale, like the deliverables and the things that you work on every day with a core group of people. And we're also then going to transition and talk about organizational relationships. How do I inform and engage across a wide employee base? And then how do I reuse the knowledge that I have inside of my companies as well? And so we'll try to have that expand. So some of these things are for small teams, some of these things for everybody in the company. And we want to make sure that you understand how to use the tools most effectively across that. And then finally, we'll help you understand a little bit about how you manage your time and communications as part of it. So let's get started on collaborating on files. And we'll start with a demo in just a second. But I wanted to walk you through a couple of points here first. The first one is really about understanding how we're working together with anyone and in real time, or whenever time is convenient to them, of course, on any device across your organization. And this really is that ecosystem play as well here. So it's not just about inside of your company. We want to think about how we're bringing in external people as well. So, on a very managed and careful basis, or whether it's something you need to do as ad hoc sharing as part of it too. And then we're going to talk a little bit about more in terms of how you actually keep up to date with a lot of the documents that you're working with every day. And then think about how you can ask questions of your colleagues and get insights into those areas. And then talk about how we can think about version history too. So I'm going to switch back to demo here, and Mark is going to be my wonderful colleague as we do this. And so the first thing I wanted to show you, remember that I went into Word Online earlier from office.com. So I'm going to go ahead and actually create a new blank document here. So I have a whole range of templates. I could do a lot of different things here, but we'll just go with a new blank document. And I can start actually typing out some information here. So for example, it's like a marketing program, and I want to include this. Now, I can actually take this and think about, how do I do a lookup on this information already? So if I open this up in Word, I can get more information as part of this, but I can also grab, just insert content from other places too. So as I put this in here, I can involve at Mark, so I'm going to say at Isaiah Langer, I'm going to share this up with you. Here we go. So I'm going to type Isaiah. It would help if I could type properly. There you go. So I'm going to send this to you right now. And in that share dialog, and I went fast quickly, I'll do that so that Mark can open it. So in this share dialog right here, we get some link settings in here that actually allow us to specify who we want to share that content with. So I've got anyone, I've got people in our organization, I can actually give specific people with access in there, and I could also look at how I can specify people who I want to edit versus not edit as well. And so you can see I've got a sharing setting here with allowing editing, and I can also allow this link to actually expire. So if I only want folks to actually restrict access to the, collaborating on that document, and this could be a Word document, PowerPoint document, Excel document, it's all the same across these different applications, so I'm able to do that. And I can actually allow that expiration to happen when I don't want people to have access anymore. And so it's a really simple thing to be able to do, but there's a lot of power built into how this is constructed. I can even put together a password in here too. So if I wanted to do that and allow people to, not download the document also. And this is automatically, you notice it's being saved automatically. Mark is doing a great job as Isaiah here, and so he's putting in some great content here about my marketing program, which is obviously about rocks and stones and things. No, it's all good. So when we put in this content, you can see where he's editing on the page. So that little flag actually indicates where Isaiah, or Mark in this case, is actually editing. And you can see up in the top corner there that he's editing the document right now. So I can check out his people card, I can actually click on this, and I can check out what he's working on. I could also check out the things that he's doing from a change perspective. So once I actually start making changes and save versions in here, that change panel actually comes through and allows me to see who's been working on the document. Now, the first time around, I'll say, hey, I want to go ahead and store this document, and you'll see that that save button has disappeared, right? We've intentionally done this on Word Online, PowerPoint Online, and all these other places. So as soon as I actually navigate away from the document, it can actually allow me to save this. So I can say other add-ins here. I can get other accessories that might be useful for me from my Word and PowerPoint, and actually go to the store and actually download additional content as well. So this is a great way to use other places. You might see some of the vendors that we have in the expo. For example, there's the Picket images here. So if you're looking for additional free images you want to incorporate as part of your content, there's a lot of add-ins that you can use as well. And those are all extremely safe and obviously trusted before they get in there. And there we go. Isaiah's doing a great job clicking out all sides of the table. I appreciate that. Thank you. So he's putting all of those explains too. So easy way to help collaboration, easy way to share, easy way to be able to check out all of this information. So I can do a couple of other things. Once I'm here inside of back to Office Online, I can actually click through here, and you'll see that that document has been saved. Now you'll notice that that document got saved directly inside of my OneDrive. So you can see here, for example, I'm here in my documents, and that document will be in here. And so that document was automatically saved without me having to do anything, right? I didn't have to say save as, put it somewhere, all that good stuff. I was able to immediately get to my work, click share, and it was stored inside of my OneDrive. So I can actually say, hey, I want to be able to move this or change it around. I'm very easily able to do that as well. So as I click through here, I can check out these different documents. Here's the one that we were just editing, and you can see those live edits appear here. So it makes it very simple, again, for me to see what the activity is on that particular document and what I can do with it. I can also choose to sync this document. I can actually download it if I need to, and then I can even move it or copy it over to SharePoint or anywhere else. I can also create a flow based on this document. So this is a really easy way to be able to say, I want to check for changes. Is there something else that I want to incorporate as part of it, and actually bring in all of this information too. So I can say, for example, I want Office 365 attachments to come into this document library. When the file is updated, do I want to post a message in Teams, right? So I can very easily transition from, I've created a document, which we all know how to do a million times, but then how do we actually use that as part of my workflow as well? So that real-time collaboration that's going on, I can use it and connect it to other activities that I need as part of my teamwork. Does that all make sense? Yes? Okay, good. All right. Seems very simple, right? I mean, hopefully it feels simple on the screen, but there's a lot of power underneath if you think about what we're doing to actually make this really simple collaboration experience. Okay, so we showed a lot of those areas too. So I go back to my Word document here, and I can also use a couple of other areas too. So I can review this document. As I mentioned before, we have an accessibility checker. So this is a great way to be able to check out if there are issues on the document that would actually be a problem for people with low vision, or for example, if you've got spelling or grammar errors in here. One of my favorite things about this is actually one of the things I've learned as part of using Word a lot these days is actually putting in blank spaces at the end of the document is a big problem for people who have screen readers. So if you're a low vision person and you're using a screen reader or something is going to narrate the text on the screen for you, those blank spaces actually cause problems as part of it. And so when you have a lot of empty spaces, that accessibility checker will actually flag it to you. So you can see in this case, it's prompting me because Mark was very, very lazy and didn't put his alternate text on here, which is all good. So I can actually say,
right there.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
wrong.
oh yeah,
Naomi,
but that's not that's not a description of that particular thing. So even in Word Online, right, in the simplest form here, I can actually get accessibility checker, and I can make that easy for everybody in the company to be able to consume. Okay, let's move on from this one. So that's kind of thinking about the different collaboration perspectives and what we can do to collaborate on files. Now that seems like a very simple thing, obviously, but it is the bedrock for everything we do as teamwork, right? We're going to talk about teams and meetings and collaboration and put all of those things together. Right, we've done our demo, so we're good. Okay, let's talk about how we can think about running effective meetings and projects, because that is obviously the thing probably we spend the most time in every single day. If you're like me, you probably spend 8 hours. I see the head nodding. There you go. It's like, who spends too much time in meetings? Yes? Okay, all right. And so when we think about that, let's think about how we can actually run effective meetings, not just run more meetings, right, as part of this. And so that's where we really think about some of these great technologies that we've developed for teamwork. And so, of course, core to that is what we do with the Microsoft Teams. And so when we talk about scheduling calls, we're going to talk about online meetings and how we can do some instant messaging as part of that. But all of that great collaboration technology I just showed you with Word Online, PowerPoint Online, Excel Online, all of those things are still involved inside of what we do with Teams. So the core skill of how I collaborated on a document, how I was able to share out things, how I could build in things like Flow as part of it too, and do those things like accessibility checker, I have all of that power built into what I can do from a team perspective as well. I can also look at how we can use this to automate processes across our flow as well, and we'll show a couple of examples of that too. First thing that I want to do is pop into a team. So I will switch back to my demo computer here. There we go. Is it doing something? Mm-hmm. There we go. Yep. There we go. So here I am in my retail promotions team. And you can see that I've got a channel open here. I've got some files that are being stored here inside of SharePoint, and I can actually check out all of that information. So I can check out my general channel here, and you can see that I've got several channels actually for retail promotions. So here's all the members of that team. I can very easily add in a member here too, and I could even include somebody who's outside of my organization if I wanted to. So that's another piece that's important. So I can see here I've got a bunch of channels. So we've got one for planning, we've got one for the Southeast region, etc. And I can create a channel. And a channel is just a really good way to be able to segment the conversations we're having as a team. We can also check out all of these different apps. So these are apps that we can actually add into what we're doing with our Microsoft team. And you'll see here we've got SharePoint, we've got SharePoint News, we've got Stream, we've got Forms, and other places that we can do. We can even add in extra tabs in here too. So when I go back to that general channel, for example, I'm going to do this. Now, I can schedule meetings inside of here, of course. So that schedule is part of everything that I do every day. So here's that meetings tab. I could actually, put in a stand-up here. I can check out all of the participants, and we can actually have meetings right in here. But I can also just do an ad hoc meeting straight in here. So for example, if I wanted to invite everybody who is a participant in this channel, and I could say, let's do a stand-up really quickly. So we want to do 15 minutes. You'll see here that I've got that Meet Now option coming up. When I do the Meet Now option, I get a couple of new options too, and this is probably one of our favorite features, and hopefully you've seen this in other demos as well. So I actually have the ability to blur my background. So if you're like me and you're on the road a lot and you're in a hotel room and you're like, this is really, professional, isn't it? Let me get on a call and have a big bed in the background. And you're like, maybe this is not such a great look, right? So, but it's one of those. Or if you're working from home, right, and you have, children, dogs, all kinds of things in the background, you can do that too. And then I have one of my MVP colleagues here, Trebkat, thank you, who is also showcasing this and has the ability to blur his background too. So not that he doesn't love to see all of your wonderful shining faces, but you'll actually see the ability to blur that background and so that the people are not being visible as well. So I can check out blur my background here, and you'll see that if Mark comes into the frame, that it blurs him from a distance, and then when he gets closer, there he is, blurred, and then there he is in full fidelity, because it's actually looking for people's faces, right? So it's actually detecting. So if your dog or your cat jumps up next to you, it will not recognize the dog or a cat, right? But if it's Mark pretending to be a cat, that will be acceptable to blur his background, okay. And then Teams is doing a couple of other things here helpfully to tell me, hey, your speakers are muted, which is obviously intentional in this case, but the amount of times, that we get into conference calls and we're like, hey, can you hear me? Or you're talking for 5 minutes. This happens to me a lot. Hopefully it happens to you as well. You're talking for 5 minutes and then you're like, crap, I was on mute, right? And so Teams will actually flag that to you to say, you're muted, right? So look at the screen, unmute yourself, right? And actually realize that too. So a very helpful impression there. Now, this is a great way of sort of thinking about the different ways that we can share this content, because the reason I might do this ad hoc meeting inside of a channel is really so that we can get people together for just 10, 15 minutes. So instead of having to do the whole scheduling of a whole meeting and we have to all come together and wait for a status report, we want to think about using these little ad hoc meetings to really quickly drive a decision where face-to-face contact is important. Now, that doesn't, of course, preclude us from having structured meetings, but you can really think about it as being a great way to be able to use all of that capability. So when I have my ad hoc meeting here, you can check out the people who were involved in this meeting. Here's that same people card. I can check out who was there, and then I can also add in additional content too. So I can add in notes as part of this. I can add in occasional tabs here too. So I want to, for example, put in my OneNote tab so that we can put in shared notes. But we have a whole range of other applications too here available. So these are third-party apps. Maybe you're already using them inside of your company, and you're able to put all of that information in there too. I can also have a planner board as part of this too. So when I create this shared planner board, which is part of the Office 365 group service, so I can say, retail promotion, tasks, whatever. And here, I can actually add that planner board directly in here. And then once I've created that planner board, it's very easy for me to, establish new buckets and new tasks. So, if this was like stores, those kinds of areas, I can add in these additional buckets here too. So, we'll say presentation, something like that in here. And then I can assign tasks to people as well. So in this case, check layout. So we do that. We can set a due date on it. We'll say it's tomorrow because, I'm a very demanding boss that way. And then I'm going to put Isaiah on the hook for that as well, or Christy in this case. So I'm going to put whoever on the hook. And that task list then is available to everybody who's in this particular team and in this channel. So we have one shared planner board that's going across everything. And you can add as many of these tasks and tabs, across the top as you need, because there's a whole range of applications too. So that talks a little bit about meetings and projects. I'm going to hand it over to Mark to talk about a little bit more about teamwork and how we're doing that inside of SharePoint and integrating in with Teams as well. And we need to go to 7.
There we go. So it's time to inform and engage your employees, or just work with your team. And a lot of times there's a ton of content that people are working on from an inner loop perspective, things that day to day. You're working on documents, working on proposals. You've got some project tasks. Maybe you're working in Power BI and tracking the data and talking about it. But you also might turn to your outer loop and pull in information that's referenceable from where it is to have then a private discussion with your team. So a lot of what we're doing is to connect SharePoint with Microsoft Teams and have that be an inherent experience so that if people go to the site, or that's where they started, they can get a lot of value there. If they're working in the Teams channel or a Teams channel, you'd be able to see that same content and reference it in context. And it might be something that you put in for 3 weeks and then you remove the tab because you don't need it anymore. But the content continues to live out in the intranet. So if you think about the ways that we bring together, people start to share news. Maybe you'll do a trip report when you get home from MS Ignite, and you'll be able to access some of the recordings that you wanted to reference. Those will be YouTube videos. You could plug those into a nice page, reference some documents that you brought back, write up some of the highlights that you liked, and then publish that out to the team. And that'll be available to them to then pick up if they are already a part of your team. If they join the team, they'd be able to get the context of what was going on, because everything in Teams is persistent, so they'd be able to see that. And if people are sharing things more broadly, when you get home, you were here for a week, you tuned out for a bit, you might think about going to the corporate portal or the intranet in terms of your division, or it may be that people who didn't come to Ignite were starting conversations about news that you were generating that had nothing to do with Microsoft. And then we get that same experience to then ask questions about it directly, broadly, or ask very targeted questions. Maybe we should do something like that next week. That seemed really effective. You could do that in chat, referencing that asset, being able to bring it in either just as a link, or as I'll show you in demo, as the actual whole page or whatever content type it was. And it helps people to then be coordinated. Part of it is ad hoc collaboration. I just had this idea and I wanted to pull some things together, shared in context without having 5 links or 5 sites or 5 applications that they have to go to. So we're doing a lot of that. So you might have one person, or you as an individual, put something together on behalf of the team, a dashboard per se, and then push that out, have a conversation around it, and keep all the content so you don't have copies of content all over the place. Or especially when you're not the author at all, at least to be able to reference it from a read-only perspective, to then have a rich dialogue around it. So we're doing a lot of work to integrate SharePoint into Teams, and as you'll see some of the things we announced here, to bring actually some of the Teams experience or awareness of Teams in SharePoint. So to orient you where you're at now, I was on SharePoint Home and I went into a site because it was in my recent list, and this is something that I'm actively working on. This is Contoso Sourcing Europe, and I'm not going to spend too much time in SharePoint, but I just want to orient you around a few things. This is the home page, and you see I've got news, I've got quick links, I've got a video that's embedded, I've got some activity, of course, of what's been going on, I got the document library, and you get a sense that this is a pretty standard home page of how you configure it, especially when you start to work with each other. The other things you got going on here is you've got the documents. So if I go into the documents library, you'll see I've got a number of folders, and in particular, I'm going to be working in this general folder. I'm going to click into it, and what you see is you've got a real rich experience that we've had in SharePoint for a while, and we just think of this as our files experience. It's the same experience in OneDrive, same experience in SharePoint in terms of what you can do: filter, column formatting, pinning, workflows, all that. It all carries through now into a lot of different new endpoints, new in terms of you having this rich experience. That's Outlook, that's Microsoft Teams, and even into the mobile space, we're allowing some of these rich capabilities to flow through because it's the same technology. We want you to have the same experience. So I'm just going to pin a simple document here just to reference campaign results, and I'll pin it to the top. So keep in mind that document, the drone. Last thing I'm going to show you is just a list. Same concepts here in terms of being able to format, have these be conditionally based. So if I type in a certain number, it's a certain color. If I type in or choose a certain drop-down menu item, like you see here, either a specific date or if it was a status, ready, not ready, show it to Naomi, don't show it to Naomi. So it's a list like any other, and you can see up top here, it's true power of SharePoint. If you've ever worked with lists, you can do quick edit. If you ever are starting to play with Flow or Power Apps, you can see some of the things that we configure out of the box for you in terms of setting a reminder, or in a document library, maybe sending something for a review and approval. But essentially, you get the sense that these are rich lists, rich document libraries, and of course, everything that you could do in the context of Home. The last thing to note on Home is the news. So you can create a page that lives just here on this site, or when you generate a page and turn it into news or create news from the outset, that's actually going to distribute it on your behalf. It'll go to the SharePoint Home in visibility, it'll go to people's SharePoint mobile app, and it also relates to how people get alerted and notified when they start to either comment or you are following that person in the way that the graph knows what you do and who you work with. So that's the SharePoint context. That's all the SharePoint goodness, and of course there's a ton more SharePoint. Lots of great sessions to go into that. We're going to switch the context a little bit and actually see what does this all look like in Teams, plus additionally some things you can do in Teams. The first thing, I'm in a Teams channel. It's that same general channel that I referenced from that folder that I was in, but now I'm in the context of the channel in Teams where I can do a lot of things. The big thing, obviously, that Teams brings into the fold as far as the group's apps, the Teams app really focuses on chat, being able to communicate. And sometimes that's ad hoc. Hey, did you get it? Yeah, I got it. Should we use green? No, I like red. What about this? Good picture, I like it. Goes back and forth. Some of the things, though, if you start to build in like that trip report that we talked about, when you publish the news article, like I said, it went out to a lot of places. Now we have this thing that we call a news connector, SharePoint News. You would go and configure it per channel, and you just go in and you would say connectors, and you'll see that the new one that we have here, if it doesn't pop up at the top, there it is, SharePoint News. And what that does is it assumes that we have a connected team site because teams and team sites are connected. When somebody publishes news, the news should show up. You can choose to have it already start a conversation for you. So just a little bit ago, I created a couple news articles. It's SharePoint plus Teams, not versus Teams. That sounds like a good article to read that Isaiah, my demo persona, wrote. But you can see that those automatically flow. If I want to start a conversation, if I can @mention, whomever I want, I can bring them into the conversation. You get the point. But I'm not touching the object, and this object doesn't have to live in this team site. So that's SharePoint News in the context of discussions. We talked about files. So files is the other default tab that you get in every channel. And you remember how I pinned that to the top of the general folder? This is where in the general channel, and that folder that corresponds with it in that document library is here. And you get that full, rich experience. And on this screen, maybe it's a little bit hard to see, or whatever monitor you're working at, there's a great feature in Teams where you can expand. So you get that full breadth of what all these columns are. I can still, if there's a lot of columns on there, which on this one there are, I can do everything in terms of pinning if I wanted to pin an additional item. If I wanted to, if there were different views on this, I could see a different view. One of the nice things is just a nice tile view. But I'm getting a full, rich experience on this. And I can even, if I wanted to, go back to that list and then start to do any filtering, or I can show information about that content. So you can see that this is a full, rich document library experience, again, because it's the same. I'm in the document library, or I'm referencing the document library from Teams. So I'll back out of this. That's the new files experience. It's the same. I'm going to go and show you that same list, and you'll see this load up. Again, I'm going to expand. At the top here, you see I get that same access to do things like build a Power App if I wanted to. If I ever need to, I can go to SharePoint. I can also start to think about filtering. And now here, maybe I want to filter by person, things that only I put in. If I want to back off of that, anything that was maybe due or recently, and you see how it's a really nice real-time experience. Full list access. The great thing is no matter how I access this list, I could access it on my mobile phone through the SharePoint mobile app, go into this list, make an update, view it, share it. Same I can do here. I get that full, rich power of experience. Same as you would have maybe in SharePoint if you've been using SharePoint for a while. But for those that haven't been, we don't want to give them a half-baked experience. We want to give them a full, rich experience. So that's lists. So we've done a lot with lists and libraries. Now I want to move to show you a little bit about what it looks like to put in full experiences. So I'm going to go back to the channel, in the general channel, and I'm going to show you what it looks like on that team site we were just on. This is the actual full home page. So if I go again, full screen, you'll see that I get a really nice, rich fidelity. Depending on your size screen, you might get reflowed, so we have dynamic responsive design. That's true for the web parts and the page itself. There's all my news. There's my quick links. If I have a video, I can play it in line here. And I can also, if I want to do some of the rich experiences, like expand it and search for a specific part of the video that I want to find, I can do that. Trying to do that. Maybe I put it in too small. There it is, popped up. So there's a keyword bonus if I spell bonus right. And when I hit enter, you'll see it found a couple places in that video where that word was mentioned because we auto-transcribed the video. That video was placed on a SharePoint page, aka this home page, and it's now playable within Teams. I never lost the context of where I was working. I'm going to jump right to that. I don't think the audio will come through, but he just said something about now you get a cash bonus. So you get a rich experience in however this page was laid out. To show you an extreme one, I'll show you a whole portal that was built actually a couple days ago by another team on stage in an hour and 15 minutes. This is the Contoso Landings portal, and you'll see that this has a really nice, rich experience. The example here, though, I wanted to show again, not just to show a page again, but this is a portal that essentially I don't own and nobody in my team owns, but we might want to reference it. I'm going to show you another one and scroll a little bit where you see how of a rich experience, where this is an embedded video at the top of the site, so AKA you can do that with SharePoint now. You can do things like make it look pretty, make it easy for people to navigate, have some images that you can navigate through. And I'm just tapping and showing you a couple different parts of this page. This is the value, though, I think, of Teams. Imagine this was built by your central marketing group or whomever owns this campaign or design output. Now I want to go in here and start to do and hold a conversation with Nestor. I can do that. And besides my misspellings, what it's doing is it's pulling Nestor into the conversation. It's referencing this inline, so if she's leveraging Teams or she gets a notification and gets pulled into Teams, the site is there right next to the conversation. I can't probably edit this page, but I can reference it and have a conversation about it. So let's move to show a little bit about what does the Teams experience look like when I'm in SharePoint. So we've got a couple of new things there. So I'm going to go back to that general channel and call your attention to not only that pin document, but I'm going to roll up, and you'll see that it now has go to channel conversation. So what we're trying to do is raise awareness. You can create a folder in SharePoint that has nothing to do with Teams, and there's value in that. You might have a whole media library where you don't necessarily need to have that in Teams, but you need it for your team for building out your content. But this one specifically, it's the default one. Any channel that you create will have this badge now that basically means you can go directly into that team. Another example is if I go back to the documents level and I select that document, up at the top here you'll see it's that same thing, go to channel. If I were to click to it, it would take me there. Again, I can continue my work and get on with my day. The thing to note though here, which is a common question, is if I'm on the general tab or any tab that's associated with the channel, you would expect that you can do a lot of things with it. You would expect that you might be able to rename it. But generally speaking, we block you from that. Because, of course, we know the relationship and some of the dependencies of once start people working in this environment, we don't want them to trip up over themselves or do things that maybe affect other people. Obviously, changing a name on a document folder would affect the URL and all the content in that. The other thing I want to show you is from here, and I'll uncheck this, at the document level, beautiful sync button in the document library for SharePoint, right? If I go back here and I go into that same Teams channel, look what shows up when I'm in the document library. Oh, sorry, I meant to add the document library. So we're going to add a document library. And I've got one more.
Sure. I'm setting up.
All right. If this doesn't resolve just for the sake of time, in the same context of working in that library, I'll just pick any one here. These are ones that I have access to. I'm going to bring it in as a full document library, just that main documents folder. I'll keep it as a default name. And when this brings in the full document library as a tab in Teams, the rich experience, that's what I'm trying to get to. There's the sync button. Sorry, that was a little fumble. But the concept here is, of course, your files are in SharePoint, and of course, you can take them with you via sync. When you do that, it puts it into a SharePoint folder, and then per each team documents that you sync, you would get a specific folder, so you could do it across multiple teams if you wanted to. The last thing I wanted to show you is the thing that I've actually never demoed before. I've tried it before, but I've never demoed it before. So I'm on a different site, and this one was created either before we even announced and shipped Microsoft Teams, or maybe the team hadn't adopted Teams yet. So I want to connect this. It's already a group-connected site, so it already has awareness of a shared inbox. It already has awareness of things like a planner plan just for the team. And you can see up here, generally speaking, when you want to, if it's a group-connected site, you'll see either members up here, or you'll start to see assets of other apps, like the shared notebook, shared conversations. But we want to actually add a team. So down here it says, create a team, which essentially is going to connect a new team to this already existing Office 365 group. So let's give it a try. First time for me. This is where my engineer said, wait. And then no, because
No, cancel.
yeah, we want to cancel that, and we want to stay in the web app. And now it's taking me into Teams, because now this is the first time. Obviously, no conversations going on here, right? But the thing that I also want to show you is now we're connected to Teams. This is the other part that they warned for as far as timing of where we're at with this feature. When you hover over the title of a site, it's essentially the group card. And I'll zoom in on this one. It'd be a little bit easier to see. But if you see now, do you see a recognizable icon that wasn't there but now is? It's the Teams icon. And this is just a cheat way to navigate through all the apps that the group is connected to. And now that because we wanted to add a team to the group, it's available to us right there. So that's Teamify.
Awesome. It's pretty cool, right? Yes? Being able to take existing sites that you had, Office 365 sites that were part of the group connected services, and now you can just add a team onto them, right? And so you're basically taking the investments you've made of the past and then being able to immerse that as part of your team's environment too. All right, I need to go back one here, sorry. Sorry, it's all good. So the other piece that I wanted to show you quickly as part of this too is just so that you understand the concept of what we're doing here with Microsoft Teams. So you saw in Mark's demo that he was using the web app to do a lot of his demos. You saw with Treb earlier in the meeting, he was also using the web app, and I'm using that Teams desktop client, right? So we get a great experience whatever one we're doing. So things like meetings, I can do IMing, I can do SharePoint, I can do all of that inside of the web client, or I can do it in the desktop client, right? There really is great parity across those experiences. It's just that sometimes it's easier when you have something up on your desktop all the time that you're using for Teams and do those instant messaging and chat through the day to have that available too. So we have a range of options there in terms of how you experience it. You also get a great experience on your mobile phone, so you can do meetings directly from your mobile phone, you can do the camera feed, you can share presentations from your mobile phone. I have totally done this in the back of the lift from the airport, right? Actually doing PowerPoint, doing all of that all the way through. And it represents how we work, right? How we actually work in the real world, which is messy and complicated, and I'm in the car, and then I'm trying to get in the office, and you can't get through the door, and all of those things, right, that you actually have to do, but it actually is able to take that connection. And you can use your mobile app as that side companion as well. So if you know that you start off a conversation maybe in the office and you're on that Teams meeting, you can log in with your mobile app as kind of a side companion, whether you're going to move audio because you're going to commute or whatever it is. So I just want to sort of explain there that that whole range of options of how people are doing work in the real world is something we're really trying to build into all of these experiences. And we think about Teams as that immersive environment. It really is a place, I think about it as kind of a meeting room for the team that you're working in. So it's for that core group of people that you're working with every single day, and it's really centered on deliverables. Like I'm building PowerPoints, I'm building, lists inside of SharePoint. We've got work that we're progressing as part of it. And so I think about it as like a meeting room, right? That you can have all these tabs up of all the things. I got my shared planner board, I've got my lists in SharePoint, I've got my web apps, I've got my files and my documents. I've got all of that same information in one place and specifically. And then I can check out all of these different experiences as part of that too. So regardless of whether I'm in the web app, whether I'm in the desktop app, my team has one place to go to experience all of the richness of Office 365, and then I can add in those additional tabs with that ecosystem as well. So let's talk about a couple of other things as part of this. We'll talk about a little bit more on informing and engaging across the entire organization. And you saw me flash up, I think, earlier this slide. There we go. So let's talk about a little bit about news as well. And so we'll do that. So the first thing I want to sort of draw your attention to here is, in contrast to what we're talking about with effective meetings and people, it was really around how we're putting together projects, again, that meeting room from our core team of people to get work done. When we talk about informing and engaging employees, it's something we want to think about connecting across the entire organization. And so there are a number of ways to be able to do that. There are lots of capabilities that we're building into Microsoft 365 to help with that. Now you'll see some examples here, for example, on the mobile devices here, of the live events capability. Have you seen the live events capability that we have? A couple of folks? Some folks? Who has no idea what I'm talking about when I say live events? Okay.
Who's feeling alive right now?
I know. Who's alive? Who's breathing? No, it's all good. No, it's all fun. So let me show you a couple of things inside of the live events capability, and then we'll carry on the conversation from there too. So let me pop over here, and I'm going to go over to number 6. And here we have sort of the idea of idea of being able to actually create communities that go across my organization. Our hero application for doing this is Yammer. So again, Teams, we're using this for a group of people. We're working on deliverables. We're getting stuff done and progressing our work forward. When we think about Yammer, it's about how do I create communities and connections across the organization. So the first hero application for doing this is usually your leadership. So obviously you have an all-hands meeting right now. You may be having a town hall type of situations where you do a monthly call or a monthly broadcast. And so thinking about how we can connect those pieces together is really important too. So we have a new capability inside of here. It's called the live events capability. And you can see over on the right rail, when I create a group, I actually have access to this group events as part of that. But most importantly, the communities that we put together inside of here are really about furthering the conversation inside of an organization. So when we talk about things like employee engagement, how do I feel connected as a company? How do I feel connected to the alignment and the vision and the strategy of the company? Part of having that is this dialogue that you have with leadership. How do I have conversations that actually involve you as a person? How do I make sure that my opinion is being heard even when I'm on the other side of the planet and never get to go to corporate headquarters? How do I make sure that I feel included as part of it? And so we advocate really putting together a leadership sort of executive corner. We do this inside of Microsoft. Our CEO, Satya, has a group out there with over 120,000 people who actually collaborate on that community. And when you set up this community to start off with, it could be for one of your organizational leaders, or it could be a community leader. For example, if you're running a specific service or a specific topic of interest. So I can look at those areas here and I can establish this group very simply. And it's important to give people a little bit of guidance in terms of the questions that they can ask as part of this. And so you'll see we've put in some guidance here. And then we have that live events capability over here. So I can actually create a new live event. And when I create that new live event, it'll actually pop it open in Microsoft Teams to help me schedule the event. And this looks a lot like just scheduling a regular meeting inside of here. So I could say, for example, sales forecast, but this is something that I need to publish across my entire organization. I can choose to make this a team meeting if I need to, and then I can invite other people. So for example, if Mark was on my communications team, and I sort of wanted to make him an organizer as well, I'm able to do that too. So here's Isaiah. I can add Isaiah, and he can actually be part of that group as an organizer too. Then I get two different options. I get this live event, different types. One is a quick start, and one is an external encoder. And then behind the scenes, what's happening here is for Quick Start, we're actually using the encoding capabilities from Microsoft Teams. So it's basically using your webcam. If you think about it, the two options are kind of use your webcam, you're a leader on the road, and you want to be able to communicate out. And then the second option is this external encoder, which actually allows you to put a whole full production quality message together. So that actually uses Microsoft Stream as the primary way to be using this. And so the reason you'd want to choose between these two things is Quick Start, again, is something very simple. I can use my webcam, and I can be broadcasting to the entire company as part of that. When I use the external encoder, it's something that I usually have set up already as kind of a town hall. You may have an all-hands type of events at your corporate headquarters. You've got the CEO of the company, and so you've got those big cameras, and it's very heavily produced experience. And so it's a great way to have both of those options. So this is really how you can think about how do I engage employees inside of my company and create those moments. I can also create a video on demand as part of this too, and also understand a little bit more about how employees are actually being engaging during the conversations too. So I'm just going to do a quick start one here because I don't obviously have big TV cameras available to be able to do this.
There's a little one, right?
There's a little tiny camera on the live stream, but for the live stream folks, you already see this. So you'll see I get popped into this link here. So I can actually join this meeting because I'm one of the producers. And if I go ahead and join this meeting, you'll see that it gives me the same options as I would in a meeting. So I can go ahead, I can click join now. I'm going to mute my speakers right now, as you don't need to see that. And then I can actually take that experience here as a producer, and it'll pop me into showcasing what I can do from an attendee perspective. So here's kind of my dashboard. So when I'm producing one of these live events, it's the same experience inside of Stream as it is here. And so when I do this, I can actually share my desktop as well. So for example, if I wanted to grab a Word document or other things that I'm working on, here's my Word document if that's what I wanted to show, or PowerPoint document, for example, here's the things we would look at. I can actually showcase that content as part of it too. So I'm going to go back to my screen here and say, hey, I want to add this video content over here, and I can do a split screen, for example, so that I can, it's all right, I'm not worried about looking nice on this. So nobody cares what I look like, it's just about showing the thing. So we'll put me in the tiny box, that's important. And then you can obviously have the content that you're working on over here. So as a producer, I actually get to stage this broadcast. So I can check out how I want this to look. It's up on my queue here. And then when I'm ready for this, I can actually send this live, and then that live event has started. And then over in Yammer, this will actually start flagging that the live event has actually started happening as well. So it'll be over here. So it's actually going to tell me, here I am, got this going on. And then a live event is in progress as part of this too. So let me just refresh the page because I think I've got a while here. I'm actually not sure when I scheduled this event for, sorry. I should have paid more attention there. There it is. There
5
it is.
minutes from now.
There we go. So sales forecast. So as soon as it sees that event go live, it'll actually check it out. So I see that sales forecast event. I can go join the broadcast, but I can be asking questions here automatically as well. So, you know, what's our new strategy? So I can actually have those questions be present. People can be interacting. Isaiah could log in if he wanted to and do that, and actually interact directly on those conversations as well. And so I get the best of both worlds. So I can actually see the content that's going on at the same time. I can be broadcasting out to my employees, and I could be doing this again from anywhere. And then I can also, you know, loop in other people as well. So if I've got, for example, multiple places across the world that are broadcasting events, I can actually bring them in that dashboard at the bottom here and actually queue up people as part of that too. So it all works very well. So here's my live event. I can see the Yammer conversations over here. So that's that same group that we just saw. So I'm watching it at Microsoft Teams. I'm watching it inside of Stream. I can watch it inside of Yammer. And I have the same access to all those conversations in here too. Sorry, it's just taking a little while to load, probably because I got like 1 million things running on the computer. But I promise it's the same group behind the scenes here. So it's all good.
Small anecdote is I actually ran one of these kind of in the, still in the early preview days. Yeah. And there was about 230 people that joined the webinar. They all, at least some of them, let me know that they had a great experience. It doesn't require Teams from a viewer perspective. So some people are on their mobile device. Some people did engage. Some people didn't want to engage if they didn't need to. Some people had the rich experience through the web app. And it was a success as far as being able to show PowerPoint to demo off of a mobile device that was connected to my PC. Audio came through really well. Questions were answered. Questions could be asked. It was a really rich experience.
Yeah. So it's a great stuff, a great way to sort of engage your employees across the organization. So another piece to show you here is just that this is a place where we've used the external encoder, so you can see it's a high production quality event here. We can see, as Mark demonstrated earlier, with the Stream integration, so we can see that this playback is happening automatically through Stream, and then I can also automatically put on things like the closed captions. These closed captions are generated by the transcription service that we have, so as soon as that live event is being recorded, I can actually say, hey, record this meeting, and it will be automatically transcribed as a part of that. So it's really helpful for accessibility, but it's really, really powerful when you're thinking about search. So how can I actually search through the content of this event as well? So if I do a search in here after the event, I can actually search for like safety, for example, and I can go directly to that part of the video where they're talking about safety. So I have all of that great capability just built into these experiences. So whether I'm in Yammer, I'm in Teams, I'm in Stream, I can have that same great experience and use the best of all of those technologies together across the suite to help me inform and engage. So that's that same Yammer community we talked about. So I've got Teams, Stream, all of that great content in there too. I can also experience this, as I mentioned earlier, inside of what we do inside of Teams here. So if I go over to the corporate communications team, and this is kind of the idea of having a back channel. So your corporate communications folks who are producing these big events, right, and they want to have a conversation, you know, back channel about, oh, somebody's just asked an awkward question or whatever it is, right, and they need to have that conversation. This is the place to do it. So you think about Yammer in this case as kind of your audience, it's your stakeholders, the people that you're trying to connect and engage across the organization. And think about Teams in this case as being your back channel of like your core team of people and having those conversations. So while I'm producing this event, or maybe I'm talking about different conversations that I can have inside of Yammer and what people have been posting and how we want to respond, think about planning your tactics and strategy straight inside of Teams as well. So I can see over here that we're in the corporate communications team, and you can see I actually have a tab here for leadership engagement. And this tab actually showcases all of the videos that we have from Stream in these different town halls. So in this case, I see the all hands meetings from before, and I can get a recording everywhere that I go. So wherever I've recorded this event, hopefully you're getting that sense, like wherever I've watched this event, wherever I record the event, I can make this accessible to my employees, whatever interface they like to live in the most. So hopefully that helps to link all those things together for you. Then when we look over in SharePoint as well, the same thing is true there. So I can actually go over to SharePoint. I can check out the exec corner part of this too. And I think it's over here somewhere. Where's my exec corner? I think it's just sites stroke exec. Let's show you that quickly. Do that. Here's that same experience. In this case, we've got a beautiful SharePoint communication site, being able to show that. And here is the all hands video, still powered by that same Microsoft Stream experience, and have that as part of the piece here. So I can do a search inside of here as well. I can do a search for something like budget, or whatever is in here. I don't know what's in here right now. Contoso probably is a safe bet. But I can actually search for that content directly in here too. So if I could find it. So it's all good. Bonus. Let's try that one. Sorry. There you go. Thank you. So I can do that search and go directly to that part of the video. I still have those closed captions, all of that good stuff. So when we're thinking about reaching out to different communities and different people here, we can also use all of that news function that we have inside of SharePoint as well. So you can see here, I've got that same channel here. We've got the conversations that are going on from Yammer. We've incorporated that inside of our SharePoint communication site. And then we can also create news as well as part of that. Okay, I'm going to move on because we're running out of time here. So good looking inside. So let me go back to number 5 here. So hopefully that gives you a good sense of how you can inform and engage across your organization. And we're going to transition here and talk a little bit more about harnessing collective knowledge inside of your company. And so you saw me build a community for leadership engagement, but that same skill set that you do to build a community for leadership engagement is the same thing you can do to think about how we put together all of those different areas. So for example, if we want to create a community of interest, it could be anything from leadership skills to Toastmaster presentation skills. It could also be people who are engaged in communities of all of the financial analysts or all the project analysts inside of the company. Or maybe they're thinking about interest areas such as affiliation areas, like I want to learn about machine learning or project, etc. as part of that. So creating those communities to have people actually engage across the company. We think about Yammer as kind of that hero application there. You can obviously access all of those great community sites, and you can also you have great access to that live events capability too. So if you are a person who runs a community internally right now, even if it's a small community, you still have access to that live events capability as well on a small scale to be able to run that for your entire place. Now, I'm going to transition and show you a couple of other demos of how we can think about using expertise and resources across the company. And so I'm going to transition back to Office again and show you a quick demo as part of that. Now, one of my favorite search capabilities up here, as you know, hopefully this week we launched Microsoft Search, so we're really very excited about it. And that search bar that you see up here in office.com is something that's going across every single one of our Office applications and even inside of Windows as well. So we're really taking it to every possible place that we can go. So we're even taking it into Bing as well as into Edge. So all of those great experiences will have that same place to actually get knowledge from as well. So in this case, I can do a search. I'm going to log into Bing really quickly here and show you. So I'm going to check out Bing. You can see that I need to sign in with my Office 365 account. So I'm going to do that right now. And check out here, Contoso Demos G. I always wish I could type a little faster when there's hundreds of people looking at me. So it's one of those problems. Let's do that. And then I just need to put in my password correctly. So much pressure when you're trying to log in front of lots of people. There we go. So it's all good. So you can see I've logged in now. This is just regular Bing.com consumer. I've logged in with my organizational Office 365 account, and I can actually start doing some searches as part of this. So if I do a search, for example, for marketing, you'll see here that I get not only results from the web, which is what I would expect towards the bottom there, I actually get this new panel across the top here that actually shows me results from inside of my organization. So all of that great content that you saw Mark and I create, whether that was Word documents being stored inside of OneDrive, if it was documents that are being stored inside of SharePoint, inside of Teams, the conversations you're having in Teams, the conversations you're having in Yammer, all of that content is now accessible right here. So I can do that one search and actually go across the entire organization. So you can see here, in this case, I have groups. I also have files coming up. I have sites. And then as I scroll over to the side here, you can see Yammer and Teams conversations as well. Now, we've also set up some things like bookmarks as part of this too. So this is something that if there's a common suggestion inside of your company, something you want to make sure that people get access to, you can actually curate a bookmark so that it appears up here as well. And it's a very easy way for people to get the information that they need by a very familiar habit, right? I can just go to Bing and I can do a search and I get all of my organizational results as part of that too. So I can check out those things. I can even do searches, as you're seeing here. I'm being prompted because this is the first time I've run this as this particular user. I can actually do a search even for just myself, right? Because maybe I just want to find my calendar for the day. Here's that little calendar that showcases a bit here. I can see my organizational structure, and I can see some of the files that I've been working on recently as well. So easy to get to that information very quickly. I can even check out things like office location if I had one in here, and I can even see the other groups that I'm a member of. So when we talked about groups earlier, you can see here's that sales leadership team. We talked about marketing. Here's that executive corner group, and I can basically get to that very quickly. So I can check out for the rest of the organization as part of this too, or I can do things like, my documents, right? Just be able to check out the documents that I want to get to very quickly. So just showcasing just one of those search experiences. Now, that same search experience is getting built into all of the other Office applications as well. So later on next year, you'll actually see it as part of this too. So I can do, for example, a search in here. I'm going to do a search for accessibility, for example. And here you'll see actually a bunch of results that are coming up. Now, that search experience is not just bringing me back documents in this case. It's actually showcasing me people that I work with the most. So those are the same people cards. You saw Mark demonstrate a site card, right? So actually showing a group and all of the different references there. We have that same coming towards people as well. So people are cards too across everywhere. So you can easily get in contact with them. But I can also check out the actions that I have available to me here. So search is becoming that one place where I can control the application, I can command the application, and I can also find the content that's relevant to me in the experience where I was. So I don't have to go off and do a search somewhere else. I can search everywhere, whether I'm in Teams right now when I'm doing my work, if I'm in SharePoint right that minute doing my work, if I'm in Word or PowerPoint or wherever I'm doing my work, I can do that search directly in here. And then I can check out things like these other documents, for example, so I can very easily get access to that. I can do a search for other things here, so I will see, again, commands that come up. But I also see content of different types. So in this case, I see Office Excel here. I can check out Word, for example, as well, and see that content. I can even reuse those slides as well. So I can go into this option here inside of PowerPoint. And so I've created that collaborative document that you saw at the beginning. I can actually search for it right in here and reuse a lot of that content too directly from here. So I can do the same thing inside of Word. So here's my Word document. I can do a search here, for example, do that same search so you can see it's the same thing here. And I could say actually insert this document item from here. So I want to grab one of those existing slides and incorporate it as part of my document. It'll actually bring that in as well. So I can do insert document item here too, show you where it is on the header. So here's that same search experience, right? I can reuse the content that my colleagues have already created in those teams, the files, the sites, everywhere that I have access to, and I can find that content and reuse it in here too. So for example, if I was going to say, I want to reuse one of these PowerPoint slides inside of my Word document, it'll actually go off, it'll find that content, and then I'll see little PowerPoint images here that I can insert very easily. So for example, if I'm going to grab this one, in this case, I'll grab this slide, and I'm going to put it right inside of my Word document. So it makes it really easy for me to reuse the content I already have and to actually bring all of those collective knowledge together and create new documents as part of it too. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I like to show that. The other piece that I want to show you is an extension on top of Word that we actually have in Office Insiders right now. So when I do that search and I say see more files, you actually see a range of items that are coming up on the side here. So I see knowledge, file, web, and photos as part of pictures in this case. So when I go to knowledge, it's actually showcasing files from across the web. So it's actually looking in this case for the definition of the word. I happen to put in EX, and so it gives me the definition of the word. It actually grabs that out of Bing and Wikipedia. I can see the files from my company, so I can actually reuse that information very easily as well. And then I can even see web results. So in this case, it's going to go off and find me content. So if I wanted to, link to this definition in here, I could very easily do that as well. And then I can search for pictures. So in this case, because I searched for X, it shows me a bunch of X's, right? And so I can incorporate that as well and be part of that. And it has that Creative Commons license on here, so it makes it easy to reuse that content. So hopefully it shows you a couple of ways that you can actually reuse that content across your company too. Let me switch back. I have 5 minutes left, and we're going to hit all of this as part of this too. And I have a bunch of links in lots of different places here too. The last piece that I wanted to cover is really understanding a little bit more about how you manage your time and your communications as an organization, as a person. So we've shown you a lot of great ways. Hopefully you've seen this from teams, the communities, all of the things that you can do to create lots of content. And then you're like, holy smokes, that just means there's more stuff for me to process, right? So you're like, how do I help to manage some of that time and communications as part of it? And so we've made some great improvements with things like Outlook, for example. Outlook Mobile, if you haven't downloaded it, please do. You'll find it's a really rich experience and puts Find at the center of everything that you're working on. But looking at how we're taking that same idea and stay connected and informed as you go. So let me pop into Outlook from here, and I'm going to go straight into Outlook here. So Outlook, in this case, we have that same search experience that's coming on. So there is a search bar up in the Office header, in the Outlook header, on Web Access, that says the new Outlook, so you can actually opt into that. So I advise you to check it out and actually slide over, and it will pop that new search bar up here. Now, I can start doing a search directly in here, so same searches that we did before. So, for example, if I'm looking for mail that I got from Isaiah, I can very easily see all of that conversations that are going on as well. So it makes it easy for me to navigate by people, which is one of the key things that we do as well. I can even check out in different inboxes. I've got my different groups as part of this too, and I can actually narrow my search per those different folders. So when I'm searching here, I can actually say very easily, does it have attachments, right? Does it have from and to dates? Putting in those filters very easily too. And I can do searches like email with attachments if I just want to type it out as well. So I can actually check that stuff out too. So it makes it very easy again to find that information that I need on a frequent basis. My calendar and scheduling is also a part of this, so regardless of whether I'm using Outlook Mobile, I can see all those pieces as well. I can see my group calendars and overlay those on here, so when I do that, it'll actually pop up a couple of different things here. And then I can even discover calendars, so this is something I find very useful when you're collaborating with colleagues across the world. So you oftentimes are like, oh, I'm not aware, I work a lot, for example, with our Norwegian teams, and I never know when the national holidays are in Norway, right? And you're like, oh, it's a holiday, and damn it, I need that thing, and it's really urgent. And actually allowing me to discover calendars here as soon as it loads will actually show me a range of calendars that I can get from across the world and actually incorporate it as part of this too. And I don't know why it's not loading, because it's a really simple thing, but it should. But it will load up those additional calendars too. So that's another piece to show you. Another one that I wanted to show you as part of Office is how you're sort of managing and spending your time. So you can do a search for My Analytics, and this is something that's available if you have an E5 license as well. So if I go in, I'm going to log in. As part of that My Analytics, it actually shows me how I'm spending my time. So how are you actually investing your time? So it mines that data that we've just seen in Outlook with your calendars. It looks at who your management is, your reporting structure, and actually grabs a lot of great data as part of that too. So it helps you to understand kind of a Fitbit for your workday and actually put that data together so you can actually think about, is this a useful way to spend your time? As we can see in this case, Pradeep, our demo user, is not very busy, but for most of us this says probably 34 or something like that hours a week being spent in meetings. But I can actually grab insights in here as well. So it shows me the people that I collaborate with the most as part of this. And this is obviously a demo user, so you see a lot of content here. But I can see trends in the meetings and how I'm actually controlling that as a corporation. And then I can also look at how meeting habits are being run as a company. So if I've scheduled a whole bunch of meetings and people are multitasking through them, or there's too many people, or there's duplicative amounts of people involved in it, I can actually check out a lot of that content and say, hey, maybe I don't want to use this meeting the same way. Maybe I should restructure this in a different way. So the same thing for emails. You can actually check out how many people have you've sent your emails, and then how many people actually read your emails. So is that great content? You spent a long time crafting an email being actually read by people. So checking out, like, am I really having good communications that help to inform and engage and really help work on my team as well. Okay, I am going to stop there because we've covered a lot of ground. Hopefully this was a useful sort of introduction, at least, to all of the different teamwork technologies that we have inside of Microsoft 365. We have a lot of great resources available as well. I will mention the Office 365 Champions program, which is aka.ms /Office 0365 Champions. I'll bring the link up in just a second. And also the productivity library that we have as well from Fast Track, which is another great place to get ideas of how to use all these different tools that we have as well. So let me do Champions here, put that in there. And then there's also a Success with Teams piece. So let me do that one. I'm going to bring up these links for you so you have them on the recording. So teams.com. And then one last one for aka.ms for YAM resources. So there we go. Now I can flip over. 6. There we go. Oof, Wi-Fi is slow. So just to show you, there is a Champions program for Office 365. So if you have folks inside of your organization that are passionate and curious by nature, as you can see here, and want to be involved in how you roll out these tools in your company, this is a Champions program that exists as part of it too. So please feel free to update on that. And then we have a whole bunch of documentation on how to use Microsoft Teams and how to do adoption and change management. And the same thing is available for Yammer as well on those Yammer adoption resources. I thank you so much for your time, your attention.